Evolutionary theory is simply a way of describing how God has brought biological diversity in the world through a long process.
If God was using evolutionary processes to create human beings, when does sin enter the picture, and what does the doctrine of original sin look like?
How do we handle Genesis responsibly? Have we read Genesis correctly? Have we been missing something?
What does it mean to be created in the image of God? How did sin come into the world, and how should we understand that we're all sinners by nature? Major questions for the faith.
We have to look at the text carefully, we have to look at it as an ancient document, and we have to understand then what claims it is making and what claims it isn't making. When we talk about Adam from dust, Eve from rib, what sorts of claims are they? Particularly, are they making claims that are uniquely applicable to Adam and Eve, or are they making claims that really pertain to all of us? And I believe the latter.
Even in the early chapters of Genesis, there's very strong hints there were lots of other people around besides Adam and Eve and so on. I mean, for example, Cain, after he'd slain his brother, he was a fugitive from the earth, and he went off to get shelter in cities and all that kind of thing. So even the text itself implies, well, there were lots of people around all the time.
So at BioLogos, we don't have a simple answer on the question of the historical Adam. Who were Adam and Eve? When did they live? These are questions that the evangelical church is debating actively, and we want to support that debate. We're bringing together the best Christian minds from different areas of science, from theology, from biblical scholarship, from philosophy, and we're asking them to consider questions at this intersection between evolution and Christian faith.
One of the challenges for our project is to try to communicate that there's a compatibility between what we see in science and what we see in the Bible.
There's a lot of proposals out there of when the first sin might have happened, what it might have looked like, and I want to look at not just one proposal, but many different possible proposals that have been put forward and sort of examine each one.
More and more thinkers who realize that when you have a doctrine, there may be a number of different ways to understand that.
The doctrine of original sin, as we've heard it over the centuries in the church, can still be robust and well understandable, but also work well with what we're learning from modern science about how God created us.
I'm hopeful because we're seeing lots of different ideas coming out of these scholarly projects, different ways of fitting together the scientific evidence in the Bible.
We take Scripture very seriously, and the reason we take science seriously is because we have a high view of what God can teach us through studying the natural world.
I believe that the God who created this world is the same God who spoke through His Word, who spoke through the Scriptures. And I want to understand this God, and I want to understand this world as His creation.
We need to bring everything in our lives under the Lordship of Christ, and that includes our science.